I'm not gonna lie, 95% of the bands I talk about in this series I either like or love or at least have a little bit of respect for, and the one that I don't is probably not the one that you're thinking of. So Slayer fans, you can stand down, you guys are alright with me, let's have milk and cookies later. Really, it's just as big of a surprise for me to discover some of these reasons why bands are disliked to the point of being hated, as it no doubt is for you whenever you watch these videos. But I do thank you for at least engaging with them and making the experiment certainly a success. I hope that you'll continue to watch, and I hope that this has clarified some things. But then we get the Black Sabbath, which seems like they would be the anomaly in this mess, that they have this aura about them that makes them untouchable, that there's absolutely no way that there could be 5 reasons why people would hate them, that there wouldn't even be one reason considering what they have meant to the heavy metal genre of music, and all that they have been touted as whenever it comes to metalheads. However, here we are. I'm here to let you know that 5 reasons do exist. I didn't have to swim the 7 seas or go to other planets and discover that sometime in the 70s, Ozzy offended some alien's father. No, here we are, and I'm going to wash my hands of this. Don't shoot the messenger. We're going to talk about it. Here are 5 reasons why people hate Black Sabbath, and as always, we're going to begin with number 5. Number 5 is the unsteady lineup post Ronnie James Dio, and this is the one that I can kind of understand a little bit, because inconsistency can no doubt bog down on a fan's mind for quite some time, and Black Sabbath certainly had a time period that was extremely rugged. From the mid-1980s to the mid-1990s, and really going all the way up to the Ozfest reunions with Ozzy Osbourne, Black Sabbath was a band that was very fractured, with Tony Iommi really being one of the only members of this band for most of this era. They had multiple singers, multiple references or links to Deep Purple, for example, and a lot of the albums that were released during this period were not exactly considered to be Sabbath's best. Some were able to kind of go back to that blues rock mentality of their earliest days. Others tried to stay with heavy metal but felt a little bit old and derivative. But then there was the Tony Martin era albums, which arguably are some of the more underrated albums, until we get the Forbidden, which that was just a mess. Because of that, there were a lot of fans that simply lost their patience with Black Sabbath. And you might think, well, losing your patience isn't the same as hating the band, but it's the same thing as if you swear a band dead to you, where basically that's saying, I hate this band now, they no longer exist. So there you go. Number 5 is already a reason that feels a little bit more like either contempt or a little bit more of just frustration rather than hate, but trust me, fans take things very, very far whenever it comes to these things. Number 4, the music is simple. This one is kind of ridiculous, but this is one that has actually caused a lot of the newer generations not to get the Black Sabbath. We're going to talk about that quite a bit, as you're going to notice. The music being simple is speaking a lot to the 1970s, stating that it really didn't have, all of that much structure to it or all of that much craziness to it, that this is instead something that is being built off of very simple riffs, that the doom-laden melody that you hear in some of the earliest Black Sabbath songs is simply that. It's just simple little tropes. That's no different than some of the pop or the rock that was around at that time frame, essentially molding within that crowd, and because of that, not fitting into other philosophies. Now, this is a band that obviously has never really differentiated from that all of that much. A lot of their melodies have still maintained a bit of simplicity to it, but it also gives the compositions overall a bit of accessibility as well. The simple nature doesn't just extend to the music itself, however, it also extends to the lyricism, stating some of them to be cheeky, downright bad, and that some just feel awful. Awful and awful. I remember somebody reading Solitude, the lyrics to Solitude, and openly saying, this is the weakest shit that I've ever heard in my entire life. Solitude, by the way, is a really good song, and that guy's just a moron. This is a reason enough for a lot of people, whether it be old or new, to never touch Black Sabbath, to determine that other bands have a lot more value and a lot more sort of oomph within their materials, such as Jethro Tull or other bands at that time, and have distanced themselves from the band, citing that there was no way that they were ever going to like them in the first place. Number 3, Ozzy Osbourne in the early days and Ozzy and Sharon in the latter days. This is something that has become really a hot-button issue once again, considering the Bill Ward incident that we've had over the past couple of years. However, Ozzy, early on, definitely turned off a lot of fans with his reckless behavior, essentially blaming him for the self-destruction of Black Sabbath's early lineup, which the only real self-destruction was, Osbourne himself. Now granted, Ozzy Osbourne had a large-scale amount of fans whenever Black Sabbath and he decided to go their separate ways, and it definitely showcased itself whenever it came to the sales for his first couple solo albums. However, there were plenty of people on the other side saying that he was reckless, saying that he was a liability, that Ozzy was going to end up dead if he didn't calm down his behavior, that Ozzy was a ticking time bomb, similar to some of the phrases that perhaps have been attached to a man such as Ivan Moody in recent years. But later on, it's been Ozzy and Sharon, the power couple together, that has caused a lot of pain, considering a couple of separate incidents that have occurred over the past decade, one of which being the egg-throwing incident with Iron Maiden at an Ozfest over in California, but of course most recently, the Bill Ward debate. Bill Ward is not a member currently of Black Sabbath, so it doesn't feel like a true reunion in the minds of a lot of purists, and based around that, they look at Ozzy and Sharon as those that were blocking his admittance into the band, and based off of that, similar to number 5, swore the band as dead and swore the reunion as a fraud, considering it wasn't a true Black Sabbath reunion. Similar to those that say that a Pantera reunion is absolutely impossible because Dimebag Darrell is dead. And you know what? Those people are right. Whether you get Zakk Wylde or not, it's still not a true reunion. It's a, reshaping, a remake or something. Number 2, they aren't metal. I'm going to level with you guys here. This one's not all of that bad of a reason. It really isn't that bad of a reason. To hate the band? Okay, to hate the band, yes, it's a terrible reason, but Black Sabbath, whenever they started, they didn't just say, we're heavy metal, and it stuck. They started off as a blues rock band. They started off as a group that just down-tuned their guitars and spoke about some spooky stuff, and there you go. It's created a whole counterculture, and basically it's a simple idea such as that was able to craft an entire movement and shape an entire genre. But saying that they weren't metal in their early days is an accurate statement. It really is. Because they were still just hard rock, hard blues rock. They were something different. They had that heavy metal idea within them, and something that would be associated with doom and other, stoner / sludge-related bands later on. But it wasn't called that at that time frame, so they're not actually wrong. But to say that you don't like this band because they're not metal or not metal enough, that old argument, which is actually present with this band a lot more than you might think, is bona fide ridiculous. And actually, this is something that goes into the whole idea of they invented metal. A lot of people are willing to counteract this idea with how can you invent something whenever you aren't it in the first place. And the real problem with that argument is the fact that, well, that's what anything is. Do you think the first person that invented radishes, those are vegetable, a washing machine, do you think he washed his clothes or she washed their clothes in an actual machine that was meant for washing? Maybe a crude version of it, but that doesn't mean it's the same thing. Maybe instead of calling it a washing machine, they called it a Frobble Gobble. Does that mean that they are not the inventor of the washing machine because they originally used a Frobble Gobble? They weren't washing machine for life? It's ridiculous. This sentiment is moronic. The fact is that Black Sabbath may not have invented heavy metal, mainly because heavy metal sort of swirled around and invented around Black Sabbath. It was something that their influence collectively caused the whole entire scene to manifest itself. Not only from fans of this band, but other groups, whether it be Jimi Hendrix, whether it be Cream, whether it be Judas Priest once they came out, and just opting to take the sound darker and further in a certain direction. Either which way, there are those that don't see those arguments as relevant. They're not metal. They've never been metal. They sound like classic rock, dad rock crap. I hate these people. Please die. Number 1, metalheads are expected to like them, and this is a reason that is also kind of legitimate. Personally speaking, if you don't want to like Black Sabbath, that's fine by me. I happen to like the band, but if you don't, I can understand your point. You don't have to like Black Sabbath and still be a metalhead. This is something that many people are portraying that is absolutely dead wrong, and especially whenever it comes to glorifying their own personal opinions about the heavy metal genre, either that or about the band themselves. Black Sabbath is a group that was, as we just stated, largely influential in the foundation of heavy metal. What would become this genre was 100% shaped by what Black Sabbath was able to accomplish in the 70s with some of their contemporaries, and then with the help of those that came after them. But that doesn't mean just to be a metalhead you have to have an appreciation for Black Sabbath. You could say that this music isn't for me. Maybe you're not a fan of doom. Maybe you're not a fan of sludge. Maybe you're not a fan of older sounding heavy metal music. Stuff that doesn't have that same resplendent glow to it that perhaps now comes at you at 3,000 miles an hour with today's work. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you can shit out on everybody else's parade and basically say, well, if you don't like this band, then you're a sinner, you can't be a metal fan, you're a fraud, go listen to freaking Katy Perry, you little bitch-ass robot. No, don't do that. That's a stupid thing to do. And if you hate the band simply because of what metalheads have said about the band, well, just listen to the band for yourself. If it still has that negative stigma with it, wait a little bit. Wait until that's all died down. Listen to them with virgin ears without being affected by all of that talk that's being delivered in the background. And all that background noise can dissipate. And just listen to the stuff. If you don't like it, that's fine. Move on with your life. If you do, well, that's cool. It's just another band that you can add to the list of heavy metal groups that you enjoy. Nothing more, nothing less. Simple, isn't it? There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. 5 reasons why people hated Black Sabbath or hate Black Sabbath. I still can't believe some of this stuff. I would have liked it better if I discovered that, in the 1970s, Ozzy Osbourne offended an alien. That would have at least been interesting. These here are insane. There's only 1 or 2 of them that make any sort of sense to me. What about you? Let me know in the comments below. We have a straw poll that is up for the next episode. I'm not sure if it's going to be next week or not. So go and vote on that. It's in the description box for you to go to and visit. My name is coverkillernation, and I will talk to you guys next time. Take care.